everybody, I'm Dr. Deb, and welcome to another episode of PTSD and Beyond. Welcome to the PTSD and Beyond podcast, where we give you insights into post-traumatic stress, trauma recovery, healing, and beyond. I'm Dr. Deb Lind, and in each episode, I have a conversation with a guest who will stimulate your mind, touch your heart, and connect with your spirit, and also give you a greater understanding of yourself and others on this healing and recovery journey walked by so many of us before, wounded healers with lived experience and heroes. Hopefully, we'll also provide a glimpse into possibilities and purpose, hope, and inspiration. Thanks for listening and enjoy the podcast. One last thing, guys, before we dive into today's episode, if you'd like an ad-free experience and like early access to new episodes and special events, I want to let you know you can join us at patreon.com. That is patreon.com/PTSD and Beyond. All right, let's do it. Today's episode of PTSD and Beyond is proudly sponsored by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Biorepository Brain Bank, dedicated to advancing research on brain disorders that impact veterans. The VABBB is seeking participants both with and without neurological conditions. Your involvement can lead to important breakthroughs and support life-changing research. Visit www.research.va.gov/programs and click on the VA Biorepository Brain Bank, or check out the show notes to learn how you can get involved in making a difference. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of PTSD and Beyond. This is our first episode of 2025. How many years going strong since 2019? Thank you so much for being here today. I'm your host, Dr. Deb, and as always, it's a pleasure to share this space with everybody around the globe. As we start the new year, or maybe just a new season in life, we often feel the pull to make resolutions. Today's podcast episode is going to take us beyond resolutions, because resolutions is a cultural tradition, right? When we set goals, we make promises to ourselves. And yet so often we struggle to keep them. How many times have you heard, you know what, the first 3 months at the gym is going to be jam-packed, and people will say, I'm going to go at different times because the regulars are not at the gym right now. And hopefully, people's intentions hopefully are to keep those resolutions. But I got to tell you something, we know that we struggle to keep them. We know that we make promises to ourselves, and yet so often it is a struggle to keep them. Sound familiar? Well, you're not alone. Today's episode, I want to challenge folks about the way we think about resolutions and even self-care. So, what if we've been approaching resolutions the wrong way? Have you ever actually gone down the wrong way on a road and you're thinking you're going the right way, but until you have that V8 moment, a moment of awareness of, hey, you know what? Maybe there's another way to do this. Well, you're never going to believe it in a million years, but yes, I had that awareness, which it was. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, well, here we go. This is the podcast episode topic. What if instead of seeing these practices as resolutions, as tasks and social pressures, we approached them as opportunities, okay, ready, drum roll, for respite. Yes, for respite. This subtle shift from pressure to respite can transform how we think. It can bring a depth of awareness. It can transform how we feel and also show up in our daily lives. So let's unpack, at least start unpacking, Get it? Resolution? Let's start unpacking. I know, right? My humor. I hope you laughed at that one. That was my little subtle joke there. Let's start by unpacking why so many resolutions don't work out. They're often born from external pressures and internal expectations, like these kind of statements. I need to lose weight. I got to get healthy. I should be more productive. I should go to that gym because I pay for that membership. I should, I need, I want. Do you recognize the language here? Need, want, should. And all of those things are, well, they can be anyway, shaming, filled with pressure. You know what? That pressure is exhausting. It is. It is absolutely freaking exhausting. Now, what happens? What happens? Just ride with me along this on this journey for a second. What happens if we approach self-care or growth from this mindset? What happens? Well, I'll tell you what happens. It stops feeling like care at all. It becomes another task. It becomes another chore. It becomes another tick box. It becomes another pressure. And it becomes another stressor. Another stressor. And it undermines exactly what it's supposed to. There's another word. Need, want, should, and supposed to. Supposed to. But if you're from, Michigan, we don't say supposed to. Actually, it's all one word, right? So my wonderful family in Michigan that likes to point out the dialect, yeah, supposed to. It's all one word. Supposed to, and it doesn't feel like care at all. It becomes just another thing we have to do. And instead of looking forward to these activities, what do? We skip it. We skip going to the gym. We say, I'm tired. And even then, if we have this grind mindset, the grind, the hard, the push. You know what? That's actually self-defeating too sometimes, because then we start feeling guilty for avoiding them. And it's a cycle. It's a cycle of pressure and shame. It is. It's a cycle of pressure and shame. And then you feel like crap. And it actually makes everything worse. You got more stress. And let me tell you something. There's someone right now who's listening to this podcast episode going, yep. Because it speaks to you. You can relate to it. I can relate to it. I experienced this myself. Here's the cool thing. It doesn't have to be this way. By golly, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be this way. So let's consider, again, stay with me on this journey. Let's consider a mind shift of respite. Imagine what would happen if the gym, the yoga studio, I don't know, wherever your place is, it wasn't a place to push our limits or to achieve a goal. That the goal actually just came along, but a place of a respite. I don't even want to, you know what? It could even be a sanctuary. I mean, if you think about the gym and the yoga studio, the environment is calming. At the gym, it could be different. There's different places within the gym where the environment is calm, like the sauna or the whirlpool. Those are calming spaces within the overall space. And in a yoga studio, the environment is calm. Usually you have some sort of aromatherapy, the lights are dim. Hopefully people aren't talking, they're whispering if they're talking at all. It's a place where we can go to receive respite. It's a place where we can go to pause on all the pressures. I'm not saying ignore, okay? There's no abandonment here. We're still responsible. I'm saying to pause, to reconnect, to restore. So let's redefine the gym or any self-care activity as a space, a place, and a moment of respite. Because respite is about relief, respite is about rest, respite is about pausing, and resuming after the pause, and we have a sense of renewal. It's not about checking a box or getting something done. It's about creating a space to simply just pause on the pressures. Now, if you have a space in your house where you do this, that's great. I can't say that's the case for me. There's always these pressures of like things that need to get done and donations and cleaning and just name it. It's all there. It's all there. However, I had this awareness of myself. What if I thought about the gym as a place for respite? So when the stress happens and I want a moment of respite, I take care of myself by connecting with the respite. Connecting with the respite. To give myself that moment, that space to be, to experience relief, rest, and renewal so I can resume. Remember, because the respite is about a pause from the pressures of life. And respite can look many different things. It can look like many different things. It can look like the meal that we're having is about nourishment. It can look like a moment of taking a pause to breathe. Because maybe I can't get to the gym yet. How do I create that moment of respite for myself? Maybe it means I take a 5-second mindfulness moment and I create that pause and reset for myself. I create that respite. Maybe it's about free flow journaling. Maybe it's about crocheting. Maybe it's about looking outside and noticing the stars. It's a moment of respite. A moment of respite. And also, looking at the places that we go that cause pressures, how do we reframe and look at the gym differently? Look at the yoga studio differently. How do we do those things? So I want to mention here, of course, some of the psychology behind this mindset shift from pressures to respite. It is actually rooted in how the brain perceives and responds to stress, as well as the role of self-compassion and reframing in mental health. This mindset is particularly relevant in trauma recovery and also mental health support, as well as overall well-being. And so let's take a minute here and explore some of the psychological principles that are at play. The first thing is the stress perception and the brain's response. So when we view activities as obligations or pressures and resolutions, we've been just inundated with continuous messages every January on, everything. Just look at the advertisements. We are inundated with these advertisements, with these activities as obligations and pressures. And whenever we're inundated with those kinds of things, guess what happens to our brain? Our brain activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is also known as the fight, flight, freeze response. It creates physiological stress, even if the activity is meant to be beneficial. Okay? The second thing is respite and the relaxation response shifts our mindset of respite activities with the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest state. And guess what happens? Things like cortisol reduction happens. The heart rate slows. And it also promotes, this is really important for folks with trauma recovery, a sense of safety and relaxation. The safety and the calm. The safety and the calm. And the other thing that it does? Assurance. Assurance. Now, the power of reframing, the shift involves changing the way we interpret an activity. And by viewing it as a form of relief, that respite, than a task, than I have to, I got to, I need to, I should. We engage in positive thinking. And you know what else happens? Awareness restructuring. Awareness restructuring. It helps my brain, again, connect with that parasympathetic nervous system of rest and digest. And then we have a minimizing and even omission, the absence of the should statements, the absence of negative self-talk. It reduces the negative self-talk. And respite reframes and encourages a gentler, more compassionate self-talk. So reframing supports healthier thought patterns, reduces self-criticism, and it fosters an attitude of calm, an attitude of assurance, and an attitude of a self-kindness and compassionate mindset. We move from fixing. We move from something's wrong. We move from the never to the nurturing, to the possibility, to the, you know what? I feel good. I feel better. I feel better. Now, there's a psychologist, Kristen Neff, who defines self-compassion as treating oneself with the same kindness and care and understanding that we would to a friend. So respite is a way for you to be your own friend. And it aligns with prioritizing self-kindness over judgment. It also has self-care without pressure, because when self-care becomes an act of respite, it feels rewarding rather than burdensome. And this in itself reinforces the value and increases the likelihood of consistent reframing of our mindset to respite, as well as connecting and taking action with the respite. And oftentimes, and I can say this for myself too, that trauma damages our sense of self-worth, and it also affects the way that we talk to ourselves, especially if your trauma is rooted in emotional abuse and neglect. Oh, here comes Max. You know what Max wants? Max wants some attention. I'll take this as a sign that, yes, here comes Max as we're talking about the component with trauma and rebuilding self-confidence and esteem. It fosters a sense of our own self-care. There's other things that happens too with the psychology of respite. In neuroscience, there's neuroplasticity, and it helps create new neural pathways and new habits. So associating self-care with enjoyment again rather than obligation. It also breaks the cycles of avoidance, because the activities of respite then becomes enjoyable, and we see the positive effects of our overall well-being, and it contributes to long-term mental health and overall well-being. So the psychology shows that respite supports our overall physical health, our mental clarity, our connection, and also our sustainability for us to stay with it. Because we know that resolutions, we don't have that. So the psychology of this mind shift from pressure to respite helps reduce stress, fosters self-compassion, and creates a new environment where healing and growth feel achievable and sustainable. It's a pathway to reclaiming our self-care as a source of renewal rather than another item on the to-do list. All right, so you might be saying, all right, Dr. Deb, this all sounds good, but how do I do it? How the heck do I do it? Well, I think about stuff like that too. So here's some practical steps to shift from the pressure to respite. How do we make these shifts? Here's 3 practical ways. The first one is identify the pressures. Pay attention to our language. What do we say to ourselves? Is it I should, I have to? And replace the language of I'm creating a space for respite by. And here's another one. The gym, the yoga studio, this moment is my respite. The gym, the yoga studio, this space is a place of respite. The second thing we can do is to redefine the activity and ask ourselves this question. How can this activity serve me as a place of respite? How does what I'm doing serve me as an example of to support me with respite? And again, I think of the gym now as a place for respite, not the whole gym. Don't get me wrong. There are areas of the gym that I completely avoid because they're not places of respite. So there are specific places within the gym that are my areas of respite. So overall, in general, yeah, it's a place of respite. And then there are specific areas that support that respite. Where in our home can we have a place of respite? What practices can we use when we're out and about, when we're at work, that support respite? The third thing is, okay, don't roll your eyes at me on this one, all right? The third one is celebrate small wins. Oh, she said it. I sure did. You know why? Because this is something that we miss out on so much, which is part of that resolution mindset. Just keep going. Just keep on going. Just keep the grind. Just keep hustling. Just keep pushing yourself. Where's the celebration? Where is it? Because if we keep pushing and keep grinding and keep hustling in that way, there is no space. There is no space to recognize yourself. It becomes expected. And not expected in the sense of a healthy thing, but a taken for granted thing, which then creates that other freaking loop with trauma recovery. There's so many areas of cycle breaking with this one. So celebrate our small wins. Every time we choose respite over pressure, celebrate it. Every time we choose respite over resolution, celebrate it. Every time we choose a moment of respite, celebrate it. Acknowledge that we're nurturing ourselves in a way that feels good and is sustainable. Okay, now let's zoom out for a minute, okay? Thank you for being here on this journey. I know, she's so philosophical. I kid you not. This is what it's about. We have breakthroughs. We have awareness moments. We put this information together because somebody else may be thinking, you know what? This makes sense to me. All right, so let's zoom out for a second. Because resolutions don't have to be about fixing what's wrong or achieving what's next. When we move our mindset from resolutions to respite, we can also invite more peace, more joy, and more ease into our life. Yes, maybe it is saying, I'm finally seeing a new way of looking at this stuff. And it gives us a bigger picture of understanding that what if through respite, we found that we are, in fact, with each respite moment, increasing our joy, increasing our peace, increasing ease, and the life that actually feels fulfilling. We feel it. We feel it. We have that moment. And when we shift our mindset again from pressure to respite, it's not that our goals stop. But what happens is we pause on the pressure of measuring up, because it's about aligning with what truly feels good for us. So as we wrap up this podcast episode today, and thank you so much for being here, I want to leave folks with a few reflective questions. Oh, here she goes again. I know. You know what? It is an opportunity to consider. Okay? Everything here at PTSD and Beyond, educational-based stuff, opportunity to consider the possibility. That's it. Just consider it. Just think about it. All right, here's some reflective questions. What is one area in our life where we feel the most pressure? And how can we reframe it as an opportunity for respite? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, what would self-care look like if it wasn't about achieving, but simply about respite? And question number 3, how can we invite more joy and ease into the year of 2025? How can we invite more joy and ease into our year 2025? Take a moment and sit with these questions. Journal about them. Journal about them if it feels right. Sit with them. And notice what you're thinking. Go back and listen to this podcast episode and ask yourself, what are some of the things that speak to you? And the choice then becomes, what do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with it? Because guess what? You got this. You know how I know you got this? Because if one person can, that means others can too. Thank you again for joining me today. I appreciate everybody being here. If this podcast episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a like, give us a comment, share it with somebody. Share your reflections on social media, and remember that when you do subscribe, guess what? You get the episodes early. And again, if you know of somebody that this episode might mean something to them, they might need it, please share it with everybody. And remember, I'm going to say it. I say it every time. We're better together, we're stronger together, and take what resonates and go beyond.